putting it all together now. Only about a mile to go, and Balance has taken the lead back. Unbelievable. They've swapped it 3 times now on the final lap. So Borch with the throttle to the stops, and McGill and Ackerman going to try to stay close. I don't know if he will have enough time to make up whatever ground he lost, but a podium finish would still be great for the man out of Illinois. He'll have to hope for a mistake. Checkered flag coming out. Borch has gotten the lead back. Borch is going to win the Ironman. Ackerman and side by side, McGill and Balance stuff each other through the finish line. I cannot believe it came down to that. Chris Borch wins a dramatic one.
Thanks. The Suzuki Rockstar Yoshimura bike just worked awesome today. Got a decent start and just worked my way up through, took my time, and tried to get out front and just stay out there and hang with those guys, and at the end just try to stretch it a little bit to get the win.
Well done for Borch. Ackerman second. That's unbelievable. And Balance does edge McGill. He tripped the transponder first. McGill made that pass there in the corner after the finish line. So it's Bill Balance's year once again. And what a year it was. Started the year off with a hole shot in Florida, but then he had some bad luck. DNF the race in Georgia, found himself way back in points, turned it up at his home track at Loretta Lynn's. Got the move on Chris Borch. They battled all the way to the finish line, but Balance, with the whole Borch off by a few feet, wins the race. Meanwhile, Adam McGill, our early season leader, began to have some trouble at mid-season, and that's when Balance hit his stride. He won again at John Penton, one of the muddiest races we'd seen in a long time, and then completely different conditions at Sparta, Kentucky. Heat and dust. Balance takes the win there. Put himself in position to wrap the championship by winning the race last week in Ohio. It was just a run for fun here at Indiana. Bill Balance, 9-time TNCC champion, and he's going to aim for 10 next season. And we will cover it all here on Racer TV. I'm Jason Wygant. For everyone here, it's been a great season. Thanks for watching.
Easy for the Astana team, leading the Amgen Tour of California, and again yesterday another scurry moment for the race leader Levi Leipheimer. He hit the rear wheel of his teammate Lance Armstrong and disappeared beneath. But at the end of the day he escaped unharmed and defended his prized yellow jersey. The sprinters themselves raced into Modesto for the chance of a first win during a rainy week. And when you have wet weather, who better to win than the mighty god of thunder, Norway's Tor Hushovd. Overall, there was no change, but there may be today as the race heads into the snowy Sierras on the roads to Clovis. It's stage 4 of the Amgen Tour of California, next on Versus.
Two new towns in the Amgen Tour of California bookend today's stage, and for the first time, the Sierra Mountains are going to be served up to the riders. First time this week, the sun is winning the war in the skies. Stage number 4 from Merced to Clovis is about to begin. Hello again, everybody. Along with my two sidekicks for today's trek into the Sierras, Phil Liggett and Paul Sherwen, I'm Craig Hummer. Yesterday played out like a classic road stage, didn't it, Phil? The breakaway went up the road, but by the end, they were reeled in.
Yes, it was very much a European day of racing yesterday, particularly with the weather, because it was cold rain yet again on the stage of the Amgen Tour of California. Down at the start line, all of the riders caved up, the rain coming down. It wasn't to stay this way all day, but it was to be a pretty tough day of competition nonetheless. The yellow jersey once again on the shoulders of Levi Leipheimer, but obscured by his black racing cape, although everybody else seems all smiles on the rollout here.
Yes, the riders treated to a very nasty start to the day, because as soon as they got out of town, they were treated to some rapid attacks, and then, of course, they had to face up to the Sierra Road, which I think was a rather nasty hors d'oeuvre for the day.
Well, the one man hunting the Californian Tourism King of the Mountains points is Francisco Mancebo, briefly the leader of this race and leading in 2 other classifications as well. For the moment, he's got the lead still in the King of the Mountains. Maximum points for him at the top of the Sierra Road. But after that, he fell back into the main field and 4 riders started to establish quite a lead on the day. The most dangerous in the breakaway was Boke Malema. But while they were chasing these 4 riders, touch of back wheels there, Leipheimer hitting the back wheel of none other than his teammate Lance Armstrong and got completely buried underneath the peloton. But amazingly, he comes out of it unhurt. His bike is wrecked. He takes a new bike and he gets back on with his job of being a pro bike rider. But it was an amazing situation.
It was a very dramatic situation, but further up the road, the 4 men had built themselves a lead of around about 5 minutes. When they came to the first sprint point of the day, there was no real action, because what they were more concerned with was really trying to build up as much time as possible with a hope to survive over the final climbs of the day.
That's right. On the second climb of the day, which was the final climb of the day, it was Mollema in the orange there taking maximum points at the top, but he was much more interested in gaining time. Overnight, he was 2 minutes 14 seconds behind Levi Leipheimer, so at this point of the day, he was actually the race leader. He'd regained that and more, and that was ringing alarm bells back in the main chase. They continued on, working well together as they raced down towards the finish, and when they got into the streets at the finishing area, they looked over the shoulders, and there they all were, snapping at the heels with just over 1 mile to go to the finish. So in the end, the sprinters had their day, not necessarily the men we've been talking about, because Mark Cavendish and Tom Bonan outwitted by the God of Thunder. Up comes Tor Hoshoff for his new team here, Cervelo Test Squad, and a perfect lead out by Brett Lancaster gave him the win on the day. Particularly pleasing, especially as he's now riding for the new team, and that's his first win, Craig, for that team.
Levi finished safely in the pack, so he would keep his yellow jersey and become the first man so far to defend that yellow jersey. These are the overall standings. Leipheimer on top, ahead of Michael Rogers. David Zabriskie sitting in 3rd, Paul.
Well, Lance Armstrong sitting there in 4th place as well, and riding a very solid race so far, with his teammate Chris Horner up there in 5th, and another teammate, Janez Brakovic, in 6th place. Looking rather scary, all those riders from Astana in the top 10.
Astana showing just the force that they have. Ivan Basso still very much in the mix, only 42 seconds back, as is Tom Danielson. Frank Schleck and George Hincapie and Floyd Landis, of course, are now well back. Well, Levi caught up with Bob Roll at the end of the stage.
Levi, first defense this year of the yellow jersey in the Amgen Tour of California. How'd it go, except for a touch of wheels there about halfway through?
Yeah, that was my fault. I just, looked down for 1 second. It's really windy, and everybody's, moving left and right a little bit. And next thing I know, I touched a wheel. And usually you can kind of put your foot down and pull it out, but not today. I went down on my ass.
Any residual pain yet in that, or might that set in overnight?
Yeah, well, it was actually one of those crashes where it hurts really bad right away and then it goes away, so I think that's a good sign.
Very fast finale, a big chase down. The sprinter team's coming to the front to help out a little bit in the tempo making. Boke Malema only 2.5 minutes down to start the day, so some tense moments there.
Well, with Chris crashing and then me crashing, their gap got a lot bigger because we had to really shut it down. So without that, it would have been much easier. But these circuits were very nerve-wracking. It's first time we've done that this year, and it's back to racing, man. I forget how hectic it can be.
All right, Levi. Good luck.
Thanks.
Well, in stage number 4, the climbing specialists should get their chance today, Paul. And I tell you what, with the elevation and the lack of precipitation, they should be highly motivated.
Well, very motivated. I'll tell you one thing, it's going to be a very difficult day, because as far as I can see, looking at the race profile, it's completely uphill and down dale. This is where the riders move from this morning. They leave Merced, and look at all those red spots. That's an indication of where all the climbing is going to be done. And that's what the story of the day is going to be this afternoon. A little bit of a descent down towards the end, but a tough day in the saddle, I have to say, Phil, for everybody.
Yeah, absolutely. It's going to be a good day.
Well, speaking of days and the team who should control the race yet again, Astana, it seems as though, Phil, they continue to do everything right.
Well, that'll be the plan, of course, but quite clearly, Team Columbia High Road have got Michael Rogers. He is firing. And I'd be quite concerned about the whereabouts of Oscar Sevilla there on Rock Racing, because I think he's their real secret weapon and not Mancebo.
This race far from over. So, Paul, it's time for you to play professor, and we need you to grade our principal protagonist, my friend.
Well, I'm going to have a look and see how most of the guys have performed. The guys we were talking about before the start of this year's Amgen Tour of California. Levi Leipheimer, give him an A+ because he's done everything so far to absolute and utter perfection. Armstrong, I'm actually going to give him an A as well because after 3.5 years away from the sport, I reckon he's coming back fairly well. Floyd Landis, currently I'll give him a C. He hasn't really showed us what he's got, but I think he may well be hiding something in that legs of his. And of course, Michael Rogers, who I reckon is one of the good contenders for the individual time trial in Solvang, B+ because he's there and thereabouts, riding high up in the overall classification. And of course, I've got to give the same score to Dave Zabriskie because he rode a very good individual time trial, and I have to say, he's setting himself up for Solvang.
It has been an exciting day so far. We take you back to the start, Phil. This was Levi Leipheimer talking about his crash with Michael Rogers, as he said with Bob Roll. Probably a little bit embarrassed, but the start in Merced, actually the gateway to the Yosemite, only 2 hours by car to Yosemite National Park. The riders, I think, as we've already noted, very happy to see the sun.
Well, 119 riders on the rollout here, Craig, but as we'll see as we get into the race, just a look back earlier today, we've already lost 7 riders since the race began, and that's because we've had a very fast start to this event. Once the rollout, Floyd Landis looking solid. You can't tell whether he's disappointed with 29th, the former winner of the very first Amgen Tour of California, but he's still only 6 minutes back, and there's time to recover that. Mark Cavendish, disappointed yesterday, perhaps? Who knows? It didn't work out, that's for sure, but let's see. Today's another day.
Another day as well for the Astana crew, including Lance Armstrong, perhaps talking about the profile with the Liquigas rider to his right. There were going to be many, and as we would expect, once they got out of the neutral zone, it always seems this way, Phil. The attacks come fast and furious.
Yes, goodbye to Merced, stand by Clovis, here we come, and immediately attacks. So typical of top professional racing. That one didn't work out. Let's have another go. This time the Australian, Stuart O'Grady, digging on what is a typical, I would say, European road here.
Looked like that indeed. O'Grady would be followed by Matthias Frank from BMC, and then the Jelly Belly man, Matt Crane, and David Frattini would come up and join.
And then Floyd Landis decided to test his legs as well, and he looked pretty good here as he launched an attack. We're only in the opening miles, don't forget, and these are earlier today pictures, and so it looks as though they're getting a little bit wrapped up here with the constant counter moves from the field because it didn't work, and they all went back into the field.
Astana doing the job to bring them back, but once everyone would come together, then it would be Christian Van de Velde's turn to try his luck.
Van de Velde right in the center of these 2 riders here, just stretching their legs. Remember that they're going to the first climb of the day on Highway 140, which comes at the top at 28 miles. Again, the peloton sending up the emissaries and trapping them all back into the pack. Everybody looking to see what might work, what might not work. Well, this one, they've got away for the climb, which was taking us to the 28-mile point, and the first climb of the day in this group was Francisco Mancebo, the leader in the California Tourism King of the Mountains competition. His teammate was there, Tyler Hamilton. Jason McCartney was there. Serge Powers was there. And not surprisingly, at the top of the climb, it was Mancebo getting valuable points in the King competition.
Mancebo ahead of Jason McCartney. Serge Powles from Belgium, he would be in there as well with some points. Lance Armstrong taking a little of a water break, but here we see a result of perhaps, forgetting where his pace is.
Yes, and good job they were teammates, otherwise they might have exchanged words there. There's another look at it for you. Excuse me?
Papo just says, ease up, Lance. We got a long way to go here.
Exactly right, and it's been all attacking riding on good, clear conditions there. About 45 degrees, coming up 50 degrees Fahrenheit now. As we continue on the attack, and this is the green jersey being worn by Mancebo, the Herbalife Sprint jersey. Maximum points. Now, significantly here, he took a 3-second time bonus as well, and at being 56 seconds off the race lead, he's now only 53 seconds off the race lead, so the race behind wouldn't let them go, you wouldn't expect. Now onto the second climb of the day.
the climb again. Mancebo wearing that green jersey, the sprinter's jersey, the points jersey, but he also holds the King of the Mountain jersey takes the points. Tyler Hamilton says, thanks for the pull. Your turn to sit back.
And goodbye. And that was a deal we think that they hatched on the road, because the peloton wouldn't allow Mancebo out of sight. So rather than try to stay up here, the lead at this point 2 minutes, he's gone back to the peloton, and there are the 3 leaders now, and they're being allowed to slip away just a little bit. I think that was a good tactical mood.
Almost 2 hours into the stage, Paul, and after that teamwork by Tyler Hamilton as well as Francisco Mancebo, it is now Tyler Hamilton, the lone representative for Rock Racing, but we promised you snow. There it is. Even though the roads are clear, Paul, the snow on the side.
Yes, definitely snow on the side of the road, and I think the organisers were a little concerned early on today as to whether or not they would be able to take in the whole of the race route, but finally they have decided that the race is nice and clear and safe, so we will ride the whole 186-kilometre route. There's confirmation of the riders in the leading group of 3, Serge Pauwels of Belgium and of Cervelo. Tyler Hamilton in there for Rock Racing, and Jason McCartney in there. He's the one in the white jersey there on the far side for Team Saxo Bank, formerly Team CSC.
Well, Cervelo's having a marvellous start to their first ever season in professional cycling. A double yesterday, winning with Torhushoft here. And in Europe, Heinrich Hausler getting a stage win in Portugal. So they've had some good success already around the world. And that'll inspire the team, I'm sure, to better things today. There's the peloton. Rabobank also riding a very positive race in those orange jerseys.
Well, it actually just reminds me of something that Johan Brunel said to me yesterday. He said this is the kind of stage not for Mark Cavendish, not for Tom Boone and the big sprinters, but this is the stage for a man like Oscar Freire. Now, Oscar Freire is probably the sprinter in the main field who climbs the best, and that may well be why there's a little presence at the front end of the main field of Team Rabobank in the orange and blue strip.
Sun coming in from the left of our picture today, and it's his sun. How nice is that with the shadows on the road? The riders are all smiles this morning, that's for sure. But with no shortage of guys giving up the race today. Kemp, Pena, Sutherland, Cantwell, Huff, Murphy, Garcia. There are 7 names for you since we started, so we're down to 112 riders now of the 136 that went round in circles in Sacramento last Saturday.
That seems a bit of a shame as well, Phil, because now finally the good weather has come to smile on the Amgen Tour of California. It's probably going to stay like this all the way down to the weekend, where there's the possibility of rain coming down again. But I think for these guys, it's very much a big smile. You can see right in the middle there, Levi Leipheimer, despite his few problems late yesterday with that accident that he had, I think now today is showing that he's enjoying the Tour of California at last.
He is indeed, and he told Bob Roll last night that his fall yesterday wasn't one of those crashes that he felt was going to linger. He sort of worked through the pain out on the road yesterday, and the 2-time defending Amgen Tour of California champion looking very comfortable at the moment, surrounded by his teammates. Looking comfortable as well are these 3 out in front, Phil, and they have, once they got that break, really pushed the pace.
Well, we switched roads now from the 140. We turned onto the 49, which we'll stay on now for much of the day, over the hills in the Sierras. And these 3 boys are heading up towards the top of the second climb. It's only a 4th category climb, which means it's the shallowest of all of the climbs today. There is the summit. No sprint. These boys not interested in King of the Mountains points. Mancebo was. He's gone back. And so Hamilton's taken it, really just take the points away from anybody else.
Well, from McCartney, because in fact McCartney started the King of the Mountains classification in 2nd position at the start of the day, which is why I thought he may well have tried to get himself a few extra points there to pull himself a little closer up to the overall lead of Francisco Mancebo. There you can see the snow in the hills, and sadly for these bike riders, that's where they have to go this afternoon.
Yes, as we look down from the helicopter here, there is the catch. He's taken his time to be brought back to the fold, but they must have got word he was coming back, so they haven't chased. He's really riding as well as we've ever seen him. Francisco Mancebo had that wonderful escape on the first road race stage into Santa Rosa, away the whole day, wins the day as well. Gets the yellow jersey and loses it the next day to Levi Leipheimer. So he's back in the field. They'd be glad to see him back, and now they'll think about settling in for the chase.
The Sierra Mountains off in the distance. This is our first day ever in the Sierras, the Amgen Tour of California, and the riders putting on a spectacle equal to the scenery around them, Paul. And It's like a sawtooth, isn't it? The way that today's stage profile looks. As much up as there is, there's also an equal amount of down.
Well, that's the reason why I think this breakaway group this afternoon may well have a very good chance of surviving, because they're all extremely strong bike riders, including the man in the middle, Jason McCartney, who's been aggressive over the last couple of days. They won't lose very much time on the uphill part of the course because they are good climbers, strong bike riders, and then you don't lose anything at all on the descent, because obviously there's almost a maximum speed that anybody can attain. So it really lends itself to the success of the breakaway on a stage like today.
Well, there's the snow on the right shoulder of the riders. We will see a lot more of it, I think, when we get to the high spots of the last climb of the day, which is a third category climb. We've got 2 of those on the final road into into Clovis rather. Clovis is ready for the riders. They're almost, as they say in France, en fête. They're just waiting for the main field to come up on that climb. They're still climbing behind Craig, and I think the gap's going to be around 3 minutes now, because now they've got Mancebo. They're not going to run at these 3. They're too far behind overall.
And I was just going to touch on a great job by the crews here working the roads and here at the Amgen Tour California by clearing these roads. Word was that they were out on Crane Valley Road, the final climb of the day, the Category 3 climb, since midnight this morning, making sure that that road was actually going to be passable. And only right before the race started did they confirm that it was going to stay in the race. There was talk, Paul, that they were going to take that final climb out due to the conditions.
Well, fortunately, I think once the sun came out, a lot of the ice and everything has melted away to make the roads nice and safe. There you can just get a chance to see wearing number 2, Mr. Armstrong, I think enjoying his comeback to the sport, and just behind him his teammate and the race leader, Levi Leipheimer. Just looking a little bit further forward now, you might just notice that the men of Orange and of Team Rabobank have decided that they're quite happy to come and do a little bit of pacemaking at the front end of the main field. Mancebo here has jumped away from the front of the main field again.
He's going to take
get himself 4th place.
Well, 4th place, and he gets a single point for 4th place on a 4th category climb, and nobody is challenging him. That's the way to do it. He might have got 4th up front too. Could have been. Anyway, that's a point. He's building quite a lead this now. I think that's why McCartney isn't bothered, even though he's up front in 2nd place. He gained those points in a breakaway on day 1. And I don't think that anybody's going to tackle Mancebo for this at the moment. What he may have wanted was the valuable points for the Herbalife Sprint competition, which he got. Keeps him in the lead in both competitions.
Rabobank out in front, as Paul mentioned earlier, perhaps driving that pace for Oscar Freire. Astana more than happy to let someone else do the work for a while. So the green and blue of Team Rabobank heading them downhill. A long way to go in stage number 4. We've seen the snow and we have seen the sun, as well as the smiles on the faces of the riders. For the 2nd day in a row, even though Astana is controlling the pace at the peloton at the moment, it really is out front Francesco Mancebo for an early portion of the day that was dictating another storyline. He holds 2 jerseys at the moment. He holds the California Travel and Tourism King of the Mountain jersey, as well as the Herbalife Points jersey. And so he's been given some leeway early on, but he's now since dropped back into this peloton. And Astana yet again doing what they are required to do, and that is to dictate the pace. But Rabobank thinking perhaps this stage sets up well for Oscar Freire is putting themselves in the mix a little bit. There have been 4 off the front. Well, actually, there have been a number of attempts to get off the front. At the most, it was 7 men, and then it whittled down to 4, and that 4 then became 3 once Francisco Mancebo dropped off the back after the 2nd King of the Mountain. Levi Leipheimer comfortably in yellow yet again for the 2nd day. Bob Roll was able to catch up with him earlier this morning at the Astana bus.
Levi, little bit of a touch of wheels and a bit of a tumble. Any residual fallout from the crash this morning?
Yeah, certainly I feel a little bit, but minor crash, so we're good to go. We're good to go.
A couple of hard climbs out on the course. Do you expect there to be any attacks from the other GC guys?
Oh, definitely. It's going to be a great race. Finally got some California weather, and here the course today is spectacular. I've never seen it before, but we're really looking forward to it. It's going to be a tough day, and I think it's going to be a great day for the fans.
All right, best of luck, Levi.
Thanks.
A very relaxed Levi Leipheimer, and he should be relaxed. He's riding better than anyone else in this whole group, and he's got the strongest team around him that one could want.
Oh, yeah.
Levi Leipheimer showing just how calm, cool, and collected you can be under tough conditions. The peloton sitting up just a little bit. That's Christian Vandevelde there, number 31 from Garmin Slipstream. Taking a little bit of a break at the back, and the breakaway already through the feed zone on the downhill. Those musette bags flying.
Just hearing there, Craig, the latest gap is 3 minutes and 40 seconds now. And Hamilton, Powell's, and McCarthy are the riders up front. Mancebo's gone back into the pack, and that was a good tactical team operation, because the peloton will allow these boys to go because they are a few minutes behind overall, whereas Mancebo was only 53 seconds.
Looking at Serge Powell's here, it looks like he's got a parachute on his back here. He's gone through the feeding zone and taken on board his meal for the day. But the fact is, he's still using that as, I think, as a way of slowing himself down. It looks like he's got the retro rockets in. Like a drag racer after he's crossed the line. Look at that scenery. Incredible what these men are going to go through today. Spend most of their day, Phil, over the 2,000-foot level of elevation. So even though, I was going to say, even though we're almost 60 degrees down here in Clovis, it's a lot cooler up there.
Yes, it is a little bit chilly indeed, but it's perfect racing conditions as long as they stay warm. They've got to be careful on the descents. Keep the bodies warm on the way down and get those newspapers or racing capes on for the descents. But apart from that, these are excellent days of racing now. A little bit like when you used to race in the south of France at this time of the year, Paul.
Definitely similar kind of terrain with mountains going up a little bit higher than the south of France, though, because today we have a little incursion into the Sierras with a height of 3,600 feet. But a little bit later on, I have to say, in this race, we will be climbing up to a high spot for the Amgen Tour of California of 5,100 feet, or around about 1,600 meters in altitude. That'll be in a couple of days' time. But certainly the terrain is very resemblant of that of the south of France.
Here we are at the feeding station for the peloton now.
Often a dangerous time as the peloton goes through the feed zone. You have to find your soigneur, pick up the actual bag from your team members, and then often you'll pick up more than just your bag and have to pass it along. We saw a lot of crashes last year in the Tour de France that took a number of the high-profile riders out, in fact, and this is tense moments, but usually these professionals, something that they pick up quite quickly. They're through the feed zone, and as we were just hinting at, it's a beautiful day finally for the riders out on the course. We're seeing sunshine really consistently for the first time. The temperature around 50 degrees, no wind really to speak of, and in fact, because that rain has left the area, the humidity has dropped down, and can't say enough how much that sun has livened the spirits of not just the riders, but everyone out on course, and even those of us bringing you these pictures. A brand new day, but for Astana, the story's the same. Protect Levi and get him to the finish. We're back with stage number 4, 115 miles today from Merced to Clovis. The big news, though, is that this is the first time the Sierra Mountains have been used in the Amgen Tour of California, and making the most of it at the moment. Jason McCartney from Saxo Bank out in front. Tyler Hamilton right behind him, closely followed by Serge Powell's, the 25-year-old from Belgium, racing for Cervelo Test Team. At the finish line today already, he's done his interviews, but he's also reminiscing a little bit about the good old days. Bob Roll.
In the past decade of bike racing, the race radio that links the rider to the team manager in the team car following the peloton has become an integral part of the sport and has really pushed the evolution of bike racing. But before then, in my time as a bike racer, what we had to depend on were the profile cards. And each stage would be mapped out, and you would have a little cutout card that you carried in the back pocket of your jersey. And in that, you could look forward to each climb and each undulation on the course. And when you saw something like this, the last climb of the day, it would put fear in the hearts of the men who are not exactly the best climbers in the world like myself. Nowadays, the riders will know what to do because the race director has them in their ear all the time. But on a stage like today, where it's an unknown course and very few of these riders have ever been up any of these climbs, just about anything can happen. That's when you need to depend on the road captain. Riders like George Hincapie and, of course, Chris Horner for Team Astana. Levi will be depending on him throughout the day to get accurate information.
Great example right there of the communication. It's not just through race radios, but often you'll have one man drop back and talk to the director in the car, get those instructions, and then relay them to the rest of the team.
Bello.
Continuing on these unknown roads, as Bob Brohl just mentioned, that a lot of these guys have never seen these roads before. So as they head up and down, they're really relying on information from a number of sources.
Well, most of the riders who've come from overseas may well not know the roads that they're going through, but I can bet my bottom dollar that Levi Leipheimer knows these roads exceptionally well. He's probably trained on nearly all of these roads. And a lot of the other American teams like Columbia High Road, they have had training camps not too far away from the area. So as these are strategic days of the Amgen Tour of California, I'll be quite certain that a lot of the top-end riders looking to win the race this year have actually been along these roads.
Yeah, I think you're probably right, because we're not too far away outside Solvang now, where the time trial is, and there was base camps down there, especially for Astana. I'm sure on a day out that they've gone and taken a look at this mountain route and know exactly what was coming at them, because Lance Arm never misses a trick like that, and so although he's just come back into the sport, his old habits won't die for sure.
He certainly won't. There's a quick look at Chris Horner. Horner,
well,
the guys had an awful lot of good stuff to say about Chris Horner, Phil, who's lying in 5th place in the overall standings on the big rainy day into Santa Rosa, because in fact it was Chris Horner where it was a day that was very difficult for anybody to understand technically what was going on. The race radios from the riders to the team cars weren't working. The race radio that the referees were using was having an awful lot of problems, and Horner said to the guys, right, you know, we need to chase this down, and they put so much pressure on it that they in fact had 5 riders.
Go up the left side, all right?
Lance, in fact, referred to it almost like as a 6th sense, as you're saying, Paul, because Johan Broneal tried to pull that group back, and Horner actually went against his direction and said, no, we keep going. I know that we need to keep charging.
A big call. That's when you need a captain on the road, when the earpieces may not work. You've got to make a good call, and he made a good call there, because I think if he hadn't have done that, Mansebo might have still been in yellow. But then he wouldn't have been allowed to slip into that group this morning, of course.
He made an excellent decision, I think, for the team, and that really was the first serious selection in the Amgen Tour of California, and we'd all pretty much predicted that the first day was probably going to be a day for the sprinters. I don't think anybody understood the severity of the weather conditions, and once you put the hammer down in a situation like that, I think a lot of guys were just happy to try and keep warm in the main field.
Visually, it's a brilliant contrast right now, isn't it, Phil, to see the snow on the ground and the short sleeves of the riders.
It is, and as we approach the top here, the 4th climb of the day, 3rd category, up comes the news. 3:45 the gap now, and this is taking us to 87 kilometers for the day. Just on 55 miles covered at the top, and the gap is edging away, which is what they want to hear. Nothing too dramatic, but we are on quite a hilly stretch of road, and it'll stay with us yet for about another 15 to 25 kilometers. Then we'll get down below.
Yeah, I think that's the important thing that you mentioned there, Phil, that it's not extending too rapidly. Floyd Landish just over there to the right-hand side. He was very aggressive in the early part of the race. As they come up towards the summit of this climb, still, it doesn't look as if these guys are too concerned about trying to get themselves King of the Mountains points on the breakaway this afternoon. What they're more concerned about is working well together and trying to extend that gap from 3 minutes to 3:30 to 3:45, which they've just got to, and continue to build it up nice and slowly over the front end of the main field.
The man who's closest on GC to Levi Leipheimer out of this group of 3 is that man right there from Team Saxo Bank, Jason McCartney, over 14 minutes behind. So you figure Astana will give them some leeway, Phil.
Yes, you would. There's no reason to commit suicide with your riders when these guys are looking to be what, 6-7 miles behind in real distance over the rest of the race. So they're not going to chase them down just yet. And I think that's why Mancebo dropped back and said to Tyler, see what you can make of this today.
Absolutely. At 56 seconds for Francesco Mancebo, he was extremely dangerous in his presence in that leading breakaway when it was 4 riders. Jason McCartney here wearing number 15. He's the closest to Levi Leipheimer overall, and he's 14 minutes behind. The other 2 riders are almost half an hour behind after 3 days of racing, so they're not going to pull that back in a long breakaway attack like this.
And continuing to talk about Mancebo, this is what you would expect. Tyler Hamilton with these King of the Mountain points going to protect Mancebo's lead. He is on the same team, so trying to take the points away from Jason McCartney.
There's a lovely view, isn't it? Snow backdrop, but no need for the over capes today. It's a lovely day up here, but it's still running, well, not so much above freezing, really. In Fahrenheit, it's around about 40 on the top of these mountains, which is making it a chilly 5 or 6 degrees Celsius up here.
What's going to be more complicated,
Good
I was
decision.
just going to mention this, because what makes it more complicated is the chill factor on the descent, because bear in mind that going downhill, these guys will be touching speeds of as much as 50 miles an hour, and when it's only 5 or 6 degrees Celsius standing still, that chill factor can push it down to below freezing, which is why Tyler Hamilton there was extremely intelligent in immediately getting a racing cape over the top of his shirt there, just to keep the cold out of his chest.
There's his little bit of food for the back pocket, drink on the way down, or at least no trouble in keeping it cold anyway. But there's where Hamilton sits overall. But he's, what, half an hour down, isn't he? There we are, half an hour down, 99th place. So a prime candidate for a stage win, which he's well capable of.
Yeah, the other rider in the breakaway with him, Serge Powell's, is 26 minutes down. And then, of course, McCartney at 14.25 minutes. Definitely no threat at all. But I have noticed at the front end of the main field, when we do get a glimpse of them every now and again, Team Rabobank, Phil, are paying an awful lot of attention, and I think they want to, because they know that they've got a chance of finishing high up in the overall standings with their man Robert Hessing. But on a tough stage like today, they know they've got a chance of getting individual glory with their 3-time former world champion Oscar Freire.
4:10, the latest gap, and the field are around 1 kilometre from the top of the mountain right now on Powell's, Hamilton and McCartney. So they're nudging it slowly in the lead. They've got to only one more climb to come. It's the big one, the one the organisation discussed yesterday to take out of the race route because of the likelihood of ice and snow. But they've been there all night, literally cleaning up the road. And the result is they're going for it.
The 3 on the descent now. They're not even halfway through this stage number 4 from Merced to Clovis, 115.8 miles in length. That last KOM came 54 miles into it. So if they do manage to stay away, it'll be similar to the breakaway yesterday, where they will have done the lion's share of the work out in front. There's another look, Paul, at the profile, what they'll go through. They've still got that big mountain, as you mentioned, to go.
Little bit of an explanation there. You can see the leading group of 3 with Tyler Hamilton in it have covered 55 miles. They're already on the descent of the 3rd climb of the day. Levi Leipheimer about almost 2 miles or 3 kilometers in arrears as we look at the time gap there, and the rest of the main field are pretty much coming up to the summit of the top of that climb.
Mancebo in the green jersey. That's actually the Herbalife points jersey. He occupies and controls both the points jersey and the California Travel and Tourism King of the Mountain jersey, being led up this final part of this Category 3 climb by one of his teammates.
Now, this is a 3rd category climb there the riders are on at the moment, and there will be points for the 4th position, and that's exactly what this man is looking for. And he's got his teammate up alongside him to pace him up to the top of the climb here.
It's a clever bit of riding. He did it before earlier when he got 1 point for being 4th on the 4th category. So on a 3rd category for 4th place, he'll get himself 3 points here, because there's first 5 over the top will get the points. So Mancebo's still knocking it up, even though he's not in the break.
It's always very complicated to understand why there are these different races within the races, but it's to give everybody a chance of coming away from a bike race like this with a certain amount of glory. And the King of the Mountains was introduced into the Tour de France. The points jersey was introduced into the Tour de France almost 50 years ago to give sprinters a chance to have some glory out of the bike race, because normally the sprinters are not very good at going uphill. And the the climbers also are not very good on the flatlands, and they tend to lose a lot of time. So it was to add a little bit of interest into the bike race, and there have been a lot of history and fables surrounding those great titles of the great sprinters, and of course of the King of the Mountains, because it spurned names like the Eagle of Toledo and things like that, the Angel of the Mountains, because those guys, they have to battle it out every time the race goes uphill, and they're always very difficult competitions to win.
Absolutely right. 55 years ago, actually, the points jersey was introduced in the Tour de France. Long time ago.
Mancebo sits up yet again after crossing over the Chowchilla Mountain Pass. That was the 4th mountain of today's stage. Stage number 4 has 5 mountains, the big one still to come, and a lot more to go in this stage. Will these 3 be able to stay away? It's been great to finally have pictures from the start today with all the technical difficulties due to the weather. Today the sun has shone, and that has allowed us to show you just how beautiful it is out on the road in stage number 4 from Merced to Clovis. Coming up on about the halfway point of this, they've already gone over 4 categorized climbs. They still have the final one, the big one of the day, Crane Valley Road, to do, which interestingly enough was almost going to be canceled out of the stage due to the weather conditions on the road, but great work by the crew has cleared it, and so the riders will get to take part. Meanwhile, the peloton about 4 minutes down. Astana has been doing their duty and leading the charge, but Rabobank also mixing a few men in there, perhaps to bring Oscar Freire to the fold at the end of the day. Well, early on today, Floyd Landis was animated trying to get into a number of breakaways, and before the stage, he caught up with Bob Roll.
And how's the hip responding to the cold temperature and a lot of really hard miles?
Good, yeah, I haven't had any problems with that at all. It's nice to race without having to even think about that for once. And as far as the team goes, I mean, I'm a little disappointed where we are now. I was hoping for a better start to the race, but it's a long way to go, and today's going to be a difficult stage. Yesterday was difficult as well, but had a long flat run into the end, so today looks like it's up and down the majority of the way, and a lot of guys are tired, but hopefully the sunshine brings back morale.
All right, Floyd, thanks a lot and good luck.
Thanks, Bob. Appreciate it, man.
Somewhat of a tempered response from Floyd Landis. Without question, he's excited to be back, as he told Bob Roll the day of the prologue, but out on the road, not everyone can have a perfect day, and as Floyd said, perhaps Ouch could have done some different things, but at the moment, there's still work to be done.
Busy old peloton, but nobody bothering to attack. They all know exactly what the situation is. Last time check we got was 4:10 at the top of the climb, and there's the results. It wasn't really a sprint, was it? Hamilton going over ahead of McCartney and the Powells, protecting the points for his teammate Mancebo.
And Mancebo pulling a few points himself back into the bag and keeping himself at the top of the leaderboard in that competition, and for the moment keeping himself at the top of the leaderboard in the sprinting competition, which is quite a surprise really, because we've got some great sprinters in the race, but they haven't really had much chance to show us why they're the fast men of the sport.
Just given an update by our producer guys that Lance Armstrong's time trial bike has indeed been found by the Sacramento police. So
we did say yesterday, if you listen to our coverage, that we heard it had been found, but in fact it hadn't. It was his teammates Brakiewicz who'd been found, but now it looks as though they have found it, which is great news.
Well, I'm sure that guy after Lance Armstrong, I mean the interview with Lance Armstrong about his bike getting stolen was on all of the news media around the world here, and of course in the United States, and I think it was a little bit of a threat by Lance Armstrong when he said, if you just keep that bike yourself in your room, that'll be fine, because nobody else will ever know about it, but show it to one other person and we'll get you,
and you're done. Well, he must have gotten, or she, who knows who it was, but must have gotten quite nervous and has left it somewhere. We'll bring you those details as soon as we can, but of course that probably will be a news story as the days continue. But our story right here more specifically is that these 3 continue to build their lead. They've gone through the descent, and as the profile goes, they'll be coming up on a sprint bonus yet again, which lends me to a question, Phil. I wanted to ask you, Paul, talking about the... Oh, look at this, a crash out on the road.
I'm going to pull up.
There's an outrider down. Is that the yellow jersey on the floor? No, it's a Columbia rider who's gone down.
But it looks like Floyd Landis
And I don't like the way that Columbia rider is holding his shoulder there.
There's Floyd Landis there, just having a quick look at his elbow to see how badly damaged he is. These crashes you see happen every day in a professional bike race, and it's always down to a touch of wheels, a little bit of misattention, and it's more often than not when the riders are going slow.
Well, I think we can have a look at that again, actually.
Floyd right there, he's standing.
But the rider
like
on
Oscar
the floor
Freire.
is Kim Kirken on the floor. This is Oscar Freire. Kirken is down, and Kirken doesn't look at all well down there. It looks to me as though he's possibly broken his collarbone. That is bad news if that's the case.
Well, Phil, that's going to change the whole dynamics of the race. There's Floyd Landis on the right-hand side there. He's back up on his bike and riding.
Well, I tell you what, Paul, let's pull out some big names. I hope we can get another look at that, but that is Kirken on the floor.
Just having a look at, well, there's one other rider there from Rabobank, but still on the ground is Oscar Freire.
Yes. Let's see if we can have another look. It's just a massive pile-up in the centre of the field there.
Going uphill, no less.
Well, it's very often when the riders are going along at a steady pace. You see one rider from Rock Racing there just stopping to look and see who is involved in that accident. That is Floyd Landis there, trying to get himself completely and utterly untangled. In fact, he's tied up in one of the bikes of the Columbia rider.
Crash with big names as well, which is a great shame. And the other rider who went down, just getting back on his bike there, is Aron Olsen. He's of the Clovis squad. He's getting away, fortunately, but Kirken doesn't look good. I don't think he's going to go any further this week.
That's a familiar sight, isn't it, Paul, when you see a rider putting the hand up there by the collarbone. And for those of you that know cycling, you know that Kim Kirken wore the yellow jersey for a number of days last year at the Tour de France. And not only is this going to change the dynamics, certainly, of his race, but certainly his spring, Paul.
Well, certainly, maybe even his season, but the most common injuries that professional cyclists get are, first of all, the collarbone, because you normally land with one or two hands on the ground in front of you, and it just pops the collarbone out. Sometimes it can just be a dislocation of the collarbone, but the other very bad injury a lot of riders get is also a small bone in the wrist and the hand called the scaphoid, and it's very, very painful. And Oscar Freire is still down on the ground. You can see his World Championship bands on his sleeves, but he looks as if he's not feeling very comfortable.
I think he's got a bad cut on his knee, and it looks as though he may have hurt his chest here. I think he's basically stunned, but it looks as though he too might not be going further on. Remember, there are 3 leaders, and they've moved on. Of course, he's just talking on his little race radio there to the Rabobank team management. But he's nastily stunned. Anyway, back up with the action. We've got those 3 riders who are leading now. They still got the lead. It was just over 4 minutes when that accident happened. The field itself is getting itself back together, but we've left behind Oscar Freire and Kim Kirken. Floyd Landis also fell, but remounted and got quickly up the road. I don't think for once, Paul, that Leipheimer was involved in that.
No, that crash was very much, Phil, at the back end of the main field. There's Levi Leipheimer comfortably sitting at the front end of the peloton. On his far side is big Jens Voigt. He was on the attack a little bit earlier on as well. Chechu Riviere is there. That crash happened at the back end of the main field, and I think everyone was just a little bit relaxed, and all of a sudden somebody touched wheels, and then a bunch of guys go down just like a deck of cards.
What that has done, without question, is allowed the gap to increase, and therefore the peloton will have a little bit more work to do. These 3 did not slow down by any means, of course unaware that anything happened in the peloton themselves, so we'll bring you that time gap when we can. So for the 3 out in front, Jason McCartney, Serge Powells, and Tyler Hamilton, their quest continues just to build this as much as they can. They've done a great job so far of working not just the climbs, but these descents as well as a trio.
Yeah, it's always sad to see someone like Kirken, because in the press this week he was telling us about his ambitions for the year. And there he is on a stretcher, so he's certainly out of the tour. And let's hope, if it is a dislocated shoulder, well, they'll get it back in and it'll be okay. But it looks a little bit more than that, I think.
Well, that's a story that we'll follow over the next couple of days, but pretty sad for Kim Kirken, because it was one of those crashes that very often are crashes, as we've seen with Tyler Hamilton or with Lance Armstrong, that you can bounce back from and not even hardly get injured at all. But they're going slowly is what I've often said. That's where you get the most serious injuries, because you fall very hard and you're not in control of your machine.
Very awkwardly, that's right, yeah.
This is a sport where your mind has to be on the task at hand every second of the day. We just saw an example of, at a moment's notice, it can all go wrong. Kim Kierken, Oscar Freire, and Floyd Landis, just to name a few, hit the dirt. We'll give you updates when we can. Moments ago, we brought you that crash back in the peloton. Floyd Landis, one of the members who was involved, he has since rejoined the peloton, but we're getting word that Kim Kierken not only carried off in stretcher, but also perhaps Oscar Freire has abandoned. So when we can confirm that, we will let you know, but it could have cost 2 of the 3 protagonists we had thought would factor very much into these final stages of the Amgen Tour California. That will, without a doubt, change the dynamic of how Rabobank approaches the rest of today's stage, knowing once it's passed through the peloton that they, in fact, have lost their man that they were going to work for today. The 3 out in front continue to work together to try to build that lead. The peloton now undoubtedly will fall back into the hands of Astana. There are those 3 at the moment: Jason McCartney, Serge Pauwels, and Tyler Hamilton at the front, taking his turn. They're making their way into Oakhurst, California, which will be the 2nd sprint bonus of the day. One of the guys in the peloton that had a little mishap of his own a couple days ago was Lance Armstrong. Bob Roll spoke with him this morning.
How's the morale this morning?
Well, it's better today now that 2 things. Now that I think we've gotten all the crashes out for the year. I mean, we've met our allocation, and the sun is out, so it's good. Team's strong, morale's good.
A couple of hard climbs out on the race course. Do you expect there to be any attacks from the GC contenders?
There'll be some. It's a long ways to the finish. So I would be surprised if you had some of the serious contenders try to go so far out, but there will certainly be attacks that we'll have to contend with, but makes it fun. I mean, it'll be interesting to see at the end how guys like Cavendish and Boonen and now Hushovd, who showed himself to be super fast yesterday, how their teams help out in the end.
All right, best of luck, Lance.
Thank you.
3 years away from the sport have done nothing to dull the most attentive mind in cycling. Throughout his 7 Tour de France championships, Lance was the first to tell you he would leave nothing to chance. Plan, replan, and go over it again, always calculating his best chances, and obviously it paid off quite well.
Just looking there at the face of Armstrong, Craig, he's just gets on with the job, doesn't he? Sits near the front, does his job. He's playing the perfect teammate.
Without a doubt, and whether or not that's in order to save up something for the other guys to work for him later in the year, or really just working himself back in shape, like he said. I mean, he loves the fact that where he is at this point in the season, and I think also, Paul, he loves the way this Astana team has come together.
Well, he certainly does. He said on a number of occasions he feels that Alberto Contador is currently the best tour rider in the world, and of course he really believes that his team, Team Astana, is the best stage race team in the world. And the team that they've got here, the roster, is absolutely phenomenal. You know, when you look at guys like Jaroslav Popovic, Chechu Rubiera, Gregory Rasta, former Swiss national champion, and you add to that Leipheimer, Armstrong, Brakovic, Horner. It really is. This is a Tour de France team that you could take there.
You're right. I was just going to say that's a Grand Tour team on any other squad, and when they start adding in the likes of Contador and Cloden, the sky's going to be the limit, and that's what they expect. So with really all the pressure on their shoulders, Phil, I mean, can they exceed expectations at all, or is it just going to try to do what they want to do?
I think what's more interesting is the fact that Lance Armstrong is prepared to describe himself as a super domestique. I think he's enjoying that role, and he always was one of the guys when he was racing, and he was always able to turn around a favor to help a teammate. And in the past, he sacrificed his own chances on a number of occasions in certain races, like, of course, the Tour of Georgia, for somebody else on the team to get themselves a stage victory.
The other thing, and Paul, I know you've talked about this already, but I want to bring up again, is it's not just the riders that are excited, is it? Johan Bruneel has talked about how excited he is to be back in the car.
No, definitely. He actually drove in the team car yesterday and said he was very excited about getting back into the team car's position, and felt that it was something he'd missed for a long time. Floyd Landis here has got himself back up from that crash, and he seemed to find it rather amusing because he was not quite as injured as anybody else. But it's one of those crashes, and I've seen it happen so many times, and you can come away with nothing at all. But sadly for Kim Kirken, he's actually abandoned the race and been transported to hospital.
Along with Oscar. Anyway, the boys up front are approaching Oakhurst, and once they get to there, it's a residence, got a population, I believe, Oakhurst, Paul, of 13,000. And the reports are they're all on the finishing line waiting for the sprint.
There might be a few more than 13,000, because I know there's an awful lot of people come down to see this bike race. And in fact, we've got the result
through without the picture. Sorry about that. We'll get a look at it when the budge comes through. McCartney, Hamilton, Pauls. There was no sprint, of course. They just raced through it.
No, they did. For these guys at the front of the bike race, they want to keep themselves riding along, trying to build on that advantage. They will now, I think, feel with an advantage of 5 minutes that it could be race on.
Serge Powell's with the other two men in front, working the front end of the pack and making sure they stay as far out in front as they can. We just heard Lance Armstrong say they've gotten their crash allocation for the year out of the way, so it's all looking up. Tyler Hamilton leading the charge. Hamilton, the defending U.S. road race champion. Won that event last September on the East Coast. He's been a pro since 1995, and of course also the Olympic Games road race champion from 2004 back in Athens. And speaking of back, we move back into the peloton. The gap is ballooned to 6 minutes and 15 seconds. Well, we've got another crash, and that looked like perhaps Garmin Slipstream involved in that one, and it was indeed Garmin Slipstream. It looks as though that could in fact be Christian Vande Velde. Christian Vande Velde, yes, goes down, sitting in 30th overall, over 6 minutes behind Levi Leipheimer, but that was a high-speed crash, holding the left knee. He absolutely looks to be in pain, but still pedaling, which is the one good sign after going down at that velocity. He's not going to be able to take any sort of rest at all, because now he's going to have to hope that his teammates, eventually they'll notice he's not there. We look again, and it's so hard to see. He's on that right side of the road. There, a bunch of guys go down. 3 guys go down, and the front of it was Christian. So perhaps like we saw with Levi touching wheels with Lance, similar situation.
But now Vande Velde's back at the doctor's car. I could do with going there myself. I feel so bad.
You could. No one really knows that you've been under the weather all week.
I've a good mind to abandon.
Don't do that. You can't do that.
We need you. We need you. The 3 in front working as a threesome. We're trying to do the same here in the booth at the finish in Clovis. Our leaders have built up that lead to over 6 minutes, and it may in fact get even larger, what with that last crash happening, Paul.
No, definitely. I think the fact that it's stretched out to 6 minutes and 15 seconds, these guys now will start to be thinking that they may well have enough in hand to get themselves a victory. Although I did notice a change in the color of the jerseys at the front end of the main field, because Columbia High Road now have decided they're going to lend a little hand at the front to whip up the pacemaking. So maybe they feel that their man Mark Cavendish can get over the climb today of Crane Valley Road and get them the victory that he was looking for yesterday.
Cavendish, a man who has made no secret about the fact that his goal this year, Phil, is that green jersey in the Tour de France. So he knows he's going to have to improve his climbing off of last year, and he seems very confident that he can do it.
Yes, he's tested himself in the big tours now. His first objective as a young rider, 21, 22 years of age, was to win stages. He's done that. Now he feels he's reached the end of the big tours. He can now be competitive along the whole route. So that's his next objective. You're absolutely right, Craig. He now wants to be a green jersey winner on the Tour. And by the way, no British cyclist has ever done that.
And what is quite amazing about the performance of Mark Cavendish was that the record for stage victories in the Tour de France is held by a guy by the name of Barry Hoban. And over a 15-year career, Barry Hoban won 8 stages in the Tour de France, and Mark Cavendish won 4 in a single season.
I'll tell you what, Barry might be listening to our commentary in the UK, and he'll correct me if I'm wrong, I'm sure, but he finished second. I know he finished third in the green jersey. I have a feeling he might even finish second to Patrick Sercoux.
Well, Barry Hoban was a great sprinter himself, and he had a love affair, I think, with Bordeaux, because he won a number of stages in Bordeaux. One of those was a finish on the track, and that was quite an exciting way to finish Tour stages in those days.
Phil, you just mentioned that no British cyclist has ever won that green jersey at the end of the Tour de France, but there's been a lot of talk, hasn't there, over the past 12 to 18 months about just how good British cycling has become, a lot, not only on the track, but certainly on the road, and how the future looks so bright heading towards London in 2012.
Well, they're building up a top professional team, and funnily enough, only yesterday, Craig, and you didn't know this, but the president of British Cycling sent me an email that said to me, "Are you at the Tour of California?" I said yes, and he replied saying, "Our team will be in that race next year." So obviously progress is sweet right now. Yeah. Well, that's killed the conversation, boys.
No, not at all. I was waiting for Paul to add some more to that.
I was just thinking of a completely arbitrary thought. The man who won himself 3 gold medals at the Olympic Games last year, Sir Chris Hoy, the sprinter, has just had an aeroplane named after him, and he was quite proud.
Right? I didn't know that.
Well, when you can
can't mention the company's name on the
right. Good job by you. But yeah, when you can go as fast as he can, I'm sure getting things named after you is a common occurrence.
Then we could have had Chip Ahoy.
Almost 3 hours in the saddle for our riders today as they approach this final crest of Crane Valley Road. They're working their way through the valley. They've all gone through Oakhurst, California, which was the second sprint bonus of the day. McCartney, Hamilton, and Powles, that was the order. As Phil mentioned, Columbia High Road just coming to the front there on the right-hand side of the screen, the left-hand side of the road. Perhaps it's Cavendish's day. Yesterday looked to be another good day for him, but it wasn't meant to be. At the front right now, Serge Powles of Cervelo leading the 3. Tyler Hamilton from Rock Racing has done a spectacular job to stay in this break. There were so many attacks early on, and it was both he and Francisco Mancebo who were in a group of 4. Mancebo actually ended up dropping back to give this group a chance to go away, to perhaps give Hamilton a chance at a stage win, because Mancebo was within a minute of the GC leader Levi Leipheimer. So had he stayed in this group, it would have been game on, and Astana would have chased and hunted them down. But now they have built their lead to almost 6.5 minutes. We've gone over 4 of the 5 categorized climbs, and they are all making their way to the summit of the 5th. Crane Valley Road. You can see where Tyler Hamilton and his 2 members of the breakaway are versus Levi Leipheimer and their group, the Peloton. 6.5 minutes is about the gap. The climb up Crane Valley Road, 5 miles long and close to 1,500 feet of elevation. Fans doing a great job, Phil, throughout these days of the Amgen Tour of California, but here they get to finally stand out in some sun and cheer.
And there you see somebody run across the road to reposition. They've stood there for 2 hours on the left, but just before the race comes, it happens all around the world, they decide to go on the opposite side to have a look.
I can see him better from over there.
Well, that's what they always say, apparently. Now, there's our man that we see around the world, too, with his elk horns on. We thought it was Levi Leipheimer's brother-in-law. That's been totally denied over the years. I don't know who he is now.
Well, I don't think those are elk
Where's
horns,
David
by
Beckham's
the way, Phil.
number?
I think those horns are actually longhorns from Texas.
Are they longhorns? Oh, Texas longhorns, right. Well, they are quite long.
A good shot of just how the grade is affecting
He's aged
the
a lot since he first started doing this.
Well, he's been around a long time, hasn't he? And that goes to show just how a fresh guy with 2 fresh legs can go up against 3 guys on a bike. He's leading the charge, breaking the wind for, at the moment, Jason McCartney. McCartney more than happy to just follow him up the road.
I reckon he goes training the way he paces these boys up. McCartney just sitting there and watching him, saying, well, sooner or later you're going to slow down. I'll get past.
It's incredible, isn't it, the thrill that these spectators get around the world. You guys see this almost every day of the year, but for a spectator to just be able to spend this amount of time cheering this close to their heroes is quite the event.
Yeah, that is amazing.
Interesting, he had the name Armstrong and the number 7 written on his back there, and obviously somebody hailing from Austin, Texas, and celebrating Lance Armstrong's 7 Tour de France victories. You might just have noticed a little bit of chalk on the road. Well, the race organizers here in the Amgen Tour of California have been asked by the state and by the all different counties that we've gone through for the fans not to actually draw on the road in paint, as happens in Europe, because they feel it's not environmentally friendly. So what a certain number of people have been doing is, in fact, they've been writing their messages out in chalk on the road. In fact, I think, Craig, you discovered a story about the fact that the Livestrong Foundation have been giving out yellow chalk to sign messages.
That's right. They've been giving out chalk throughout the route. And in fact, you can not only put your message on the road, but they're encouraging everyone, once you have put your artwork there, to take a picture of it and send it to wearyellow.com. It's really for them. You know, years ago they started selling the wristbands as a way to garner attention for Lance's cause, and now they're giving away this chalk.
Well, just to put it into a little bit of perspective there's our boys who like to get suntanned every day. We've seen them in a state of disrobing on almost every stage so far. But to finish that thought, the wristbands, the Livestrong wristbands that have been sold around the world for either $1, €1, or for £1, they've sold almost 100 million of those wristbands, and that's really to raise the awareness of the Lance Armstrong Foundation for Testicular Cancer.
Gosh, we've got the Grim Reaper now.
I know. Well, you were worried because we were wearing the black shirts today. Well, yeah. the Grim Reaper has shown up in black as well.
And also has been training for the occasion.
It's been a great, to continue your thought, though, Paul, it's been a great partnership, hasn't it, with the Amgen Tour of California and Amgen's breakaway from cancer cause, working in conjunction with Livestrong. They make quite a 1-2 punch.
Well, how about Live Clean? I think everybody's getting into the excitement of the Amgen Tour of California this year.
This boy's lost form.
I want to ask you a serious question that I meant to earlier, though, Phil, in terms of talking about the sprint bonuses versus the points for mountains. Why the difference? Why not points and points or seconds and seconds? Who made the call to have one be worth points and the other worth seconds that you could take off the general classification?
That's a good point, that, really, Craig. The reason that the sprinters jersey came into big races like the Tour de France in 1953 was to give the riders a reason to continue to the finish in Paris, because they can't climb hills, they can't time trial. So, hey, why do I need to do all this racing? And so they put the sprinters competition in, and to help them along the way, they added time bonuses at the sprint points to bring them back in to try and balance the ability or the inability to climb hills. And I guess that's the answer. Some hills, some tours do offer bonuses at the top of the hills, but you know, that's only really offering guys with pure ability, the angels, who can gain huge time on a climb, to only get them more on top, and I think that's a bit unfair.
These three will be working, or they'll be awarded points at the top, but none of them, and Tyler Hamilton has been somewhat placed to take points away from the other two, so his teammate Francisco Mancebo can continue to hold on to the California Travel and Tourism King of the Mountains jersey, which he earned on that stage 1 breakaway.
You see by the snow on the sidewall, but we're right at the top now, by the way, and Hamilton has gone over with the points.
Well, I'm actually just thinking, Phil, having looked at the gradient of the climb here that we've come over Crane Valley Road, if there's not too much of an attack in the group behind, I think the sprinters may well survive this climb here this afternoon. When they looked at the race profile in the race handbook this morning, they must have been a little bit petrified, because it looked like an upturned saw when you looked at the way it was indicated. And I think now that they're getting towards the latter part of the race, the sprinters will now be starting to lick their lips a little bit, and if they've